Welcome to the Failing Writers Podcast pre-episode quiz. Let's spin the wheel of questions and see what comes up. What is cacorophobia? No, let's just nudge it on one. That's better. For 10 points, what is the most published and best-selling fiction book of all time? No Googling, have a guess, and stay tuned for the answer hidden somewhere in this episode.
Hey, Tommy, how generous are you feeling today?
Generous? Me? Feel like I need more information before I make a
Well, I was
decision.
just wondering if you'd like to buy me a coffee.
Buy you a coffee? What, just because I appreciate you?
Yeah, just
because I think you're wonderful and...
All of those things, all the lovely things that I do for you, like when I carry you when you get tired, and I cradle you in my arms when you're cold or frightened. You know, buying a coffee for someone.
Biblical, bit weird.
It's a nice thing to do, isn't it?
It is. It's funny you say that, John, actually, because a lot of people won't know that we actually have a link on our webpage where people can do that for us as a podcast.
Oh, yeah, no, I've not thought of that, yeah.
And as much as we don't like to beg for money, if people do want to say thank you or show their appreciation in the only way that matters, because words are fine, aren't they? But we all know that parsnips do not get buttered by words.
No, that's
do they?
true.
Cash, cold hard cash, that's where it's at. That's what really says thank you, isn't it?
That's our language, isn't it, Tommy?
That's our love language, money.
Yeah.
But yeah, if anyone does want to say, hey, you know what, guys? Those years and years of effort you've been put in, yeah, they're worth £2.50 or whatever it is. That's fine.
Hey, don't give them a number because they might have put a tenner in.
I've just said £2.50 now, haven't I? 250, then that's fine. Yeah. But obviously, yeah, it's completely up to you.
It is. Don't
feel just because we constantly deliver top-notch, entertaining podcast content to you that you feel you're obliged or anything. God,
absolutely no obligation. Yeah. That is true. We're just here for you. We're just here for you guys. And maybe Tommy, you could even you could do one of your 90s drum and bass big ups for all the people who have given us money as well.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, bribe them. Yeah, if you want to mention on the podcast, send us some money. That's how it works these days. You know, when you watch a YouTube video and you think, oh, it's quite entertaining. And then there's like a massive list of names scrolling across the screen so quick you can't actually see them.
But there's someone there pausing their name and going, look, guys.
There you go. I paid and I'm on the screen. Yeah. We'll do something similar to that.
That'd be nice.
Anyway, that's the commercial aspect over and done with. Let's get on to the wholesome stuff. There is one more thing to mention on that front.
Is there?
We now have merch available. We have some hilarious T-shirts and mugs.
Another way of giving back.
Yeah. But you get something for it rather than just a warm feeling. If you bought a hoodie, you get a warm feeling, wouldn't you, if you wore it, technically?
I suppose you would. Yeah.
There's a link to our merch on the website. So, yeah, go to failingwriterspodcast.com and have a look. That's all we can ask.
But that's true.
Anyway, enough of all this dirty corporate commercial capitalist nonsense, John.
Yeah. Who's interested in that? Nobody. Let's move on to something a bit more interesting. Let's have a little chat with someone, Tom, who's written several books, but not just normal books. The kind of book that Tommy and I could get right behind.
Gareth Rubin is who we're talking to. And the reason he came to our attention was we'd seen an article in one of the newspapers about his pension provision. It was one of these things where they have someone different in each week talking about my pension. Because you get to a certain age and things like that are interesting, aren't they?
That's it.
And he was saying, so he's this pretty successful writer. He's done lots of different things, a journalist and what have you, and basically was saying he can't wait to stop writing. And we were like, whoa.
And we thought, we've got to talk to him.
Yeah, that's interesting. But the books he's written, so he's done what's called a tête-bêches book, which is one half is one book, the other half, you turn it round and flip it over, there's another book, and they kind of link in together, which just melts your mind. But he's also written Sherlock Holmes books.
Official.
As well. Like
Sherlock
official,
Holmes story, yeah.
Sanctioned by the estate of Conan Doyle. And there's a whole load of other stuff. We have a fascinating chat with him. He's a really interesting guy, really, in terms of how he talks about things and looks at
But
things.
anyway, shall we just shut up about it and go and chat to him?
Let's. Here's our chat with Gareth Rubin.
Gareth, thank you for coming on the Failing Writers podcast. How incredibly brave of you.
I've probably done braver things. Yeah, well, I mean, the way you outlined it, talking about the reality of what being an author really is. And yeah, we fail, we hopefully dust ourselves up, getting on with it afterwards.
It's an important part of it, isn't it? I think maybe to kick off, because we are the Failing Writers podcast, it would be remiss, to not talk about failure. Obviously, as you say, all writers experience it. It might be interesting to find out what's been your most significant knockback and how did you get past it?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. My most significant one, I suppose the one which I put most effort into, which got nowhere. So, yeah, like most authors, I have written more books than I've had published. There are kind of 2 or 3 which is hiding away in the depths of my hard drive, which will never see the light of day. Probably the one which I spent most effort on, which went nowhere and never will go anywhere, is the first, I suppose technically the second novel I wrote. Maybe it's the first novel I wrote, because I wrote a sort of series of short stories beforehand, which I'd actually literally forgotten about until 5 seconds ago. They're so insignificant. Very briefly outlined. So I worked as a journalist for 20 years. Then I wrote a couple of non-fiction humor books, which did okay. And then I tried writing little comedy short stories, which never went anywhere. I kind of had fun writing, to be honest. So I don't really resent them, the time that I spent on them. But then after that, I tried writing a bleakly, darkly satirical novel about journalism, which is the one which I spent most effort on to get nothing back. And not only that, but it wasn't very good, frankly. It's not very good, which is presumably why no one's ever going to publish it. But I put a huge amount of effort into trying to get an agent for it, sending it to basically everyone in Britain who possibly ever described themselves as a literary agent. I had an agent at the time for my some non-fiction humor books who I pestered to kind of read it and try reading it another way. And I'd write a draft and send it to him, and then he would kind of roll his eyes. I could hear him rolling his eyes through the email, basically. And 3 weeks later, I'd send him another draft. Obviously, he hadn't read the first one. I probably took up about a year of his time sending him draft after draft with this terrible novel. And it wasn't long after that we parted ways. Not surprisingly, really. I feel a bit sorry, Jamie, if you're out there. So I spent possibly a year of my time on that, writing it, and then months and months redrafting it. And at one point, I changed the central character from male to female, which I had to go through all the book, changing all the pronouns and some of the details. And then I tried changing it from the third person to the first person and back to the third person. Essentially, just wasting a lot of my life.
That is torture, isn't it, in terms of editing and writing?
It was torturous. It was. Partly because, at the time, I think I believed in it. I thought it wasn't a bad bit of writing. So I say it's awful. It's not awful. It's all right. It wouldn't have sold. Very few people would buy it. I was trying to do a sort of British version, I think, of The Bonfire of Vanities, a kind of satirical look at media and Britain and British society at the time. And it was probably a little bit pompous. And the basic thing about it, the reason why it wasn't very good, is it didn't really have much of a plot, didn't really have much of a storyline. It had a vaguely interesting kind of premise about somebody who, a journalist who essentially has an argument with his boss and accidentally kills his boss and has to try to sort of cover it up, which itself isn't actually a bad plot.
Gareth, I feel this was less like you trying to write a book for other people to read and more like some kind of therapy.
Quite possibly.
For your journalism career. I don't know if it was the murder in the boss thing that tipped me off to that, but generally, overall. Yeah.
So it is. So that's where I spent probably, a year or more.
And that was the first novel you tried to do anything with, or?
That's the first proper novel that I kind of punted around.
And so you didn't give up after that then? Obviously.
No, not at all. I think actually thinking about it, it was after that I then wrote a murder mystery novel, which I thought was very good. And I still do think is very good. And I passed that around and I got some kind of decent feedback. But the main feedback I got was, it's just not particularly commercial. I have to say, I think it's actually very good. It's a very good book, which is why, funnily enough, it has now recently formed the basis of my next book, the next one which is coming out.
Right, interesting.
September. Yeah, so
recycling.
it is.
Yeah.
I would like to think, a note of optimism that even when you spend a year, 2 years working on the book and nobody wants to buy it, nobody wants to publish it. In the end, actually, 5 years, 10 years later down the line, and it is 7, 8 years since I wrote it, you might find actually suddenly you can draw it out, pull it out of your bottom drawer of your computer, and you can actually use it. It's not being run as is or as I wrote it, but it's forming the sort of core of my next book, which I'm very happy about because, as I've said 2 or 3 times, I'm actually quite proud of it. I think it's actually quite good writing. It's got a good premise. It's got a good mystery. It was just really the kind of, at the time, it was a bit too niche in terms of historical murder mysteries.
There's a lot more of that around now as well.
You were just ahead of the market, Gareth, weren't you? That's the problem.
Maybe that's it.
You were out there in front, and
I was the pioneer.
Eventually the world has caught up with us.
Where does your resilience come from then? Because a lot of people would have maybe given up after struggling on with a book for that long and then nothing coming of it.
In fact, I was very lucky in that, for one thing, I didn't need the money. Not that I'm born rich or anything, but at the time I was single. I was earning decent money as a journalist,
living in a tent.
I was actually living under a bridge. Let's not mince our words here. I was homeless. No, I was living in actually a very nice flat in North London, and I was lucky in that the amount I was earning as a journalist kept me going. Well, I spent a few days a week working on writing books, 3-4 days a week writing books, which for years, never went anywhere. I imagine, if I had a family, a big mortgage, and certainly no other, major income, then things would have been a lot tougher. I might well have sort of given up by then and never had a novel published. It's it's an unfortunate reality that money makes quite a lot of difference in these matters.
You first came to our attention via an article in the iPaper, weirdly in the pensions and retirement section. Which I just thought was really fascinating. Little insight into like the realities of being a full-time writer. It was really good. But there were a couple of quotes that jumped out. But one of them was towards the end of the article. You say, most writers say they absolutely love writing and will never stop doing it. I want to stop doing it as soon as I can. I don't enjoy writing books. I enjoy it once they're written and seeing them on the shelves, but I don't enjoy the writing process. I can't stand sitting at my computer all day typing words. It's really quite dull. My reaction to that,
every word is true.
Well, I was wondering whether you were being like slightly disingenuous, for comic effect there, or whether.
Oh, no.
But at the same time, I was thinking, well, you've got a point. Maybe you're deadly serious.
Some people absolutely love it. I don't. I don't see why you should. I don't see why you have to. I don't see. I mean, working as a journalist, which I did for sort of 20-odd years, was in many ways much more interesting. I used to kind of get out of the office, used to go traveling, used to write travel articles, used to write articles about architecture, used to go to nice stately homes or really interesting new eco homes, or meet people all the time, working on 3 different things each day, working on something new at least every couple of weeks. Whereas when you're writing a book, you're probably working for a year on a single project, and you start off with a blank page and think, Christ alive, how am I supposed to write 100,000 words? I can write maybe 10 if I push myself. And you just kind of bashing away at the keyboard, letter after letter, is very repetitive and quite lonely. Certainly, the vast majority of authors are just sitting alone in their bedroom doing it. And that is essentially quite dull. You lack human interaction, you lack variety. Some people find it a fantastic experience because they're really kind of expressing themselves. They're getting, whatever mad thoughts they have in their minds out onto a page. Works, therapeutically. For others, it's like me. It's actually, fairly painful. I was looking at just read an interview with what's his name, the Jack Reacher author,
Lee Child.
Who's basically retired, and his, the Jack Reacher books are now written by his brother. And all credit to them that they're upfront about this. They're not pretending that they're written by Lee Child. He's had enough. He says, I've done it for decades and don't need the money anymore, but so we'll still happily kind of keep breaking it in with my brother writing them. I just had enough. Just don't want to do it anymore. And it's honest and upfront. And I'm glad he's being honest and upfront about it.
Yeah. I mean, hats off to you. I think it's amazing because I think writing books is hard enough, but if you don't like actively enjoy it as well, that's pretty amazing that you can still crack on and actually finish the books.
Yeah, like I said, I do enjoy having the book there. I like having the book finished. I like seeing it on the shelves. I like literary world. I like having written books. I think books are great things, but the actual process, no, I find really quite gruesome.
What is it about it? Is it just that it is painful, hard work? Is that it does feel like it's such a daunting task up front? It's such a monumental task from the start?
All these things. It is mentally quite tiring to sit there thinking really, really hard for 8 hours straight without the respite of chatting to colleagues or having phone calls about something else. I don't think there are very few jobs, I think, which involve sitting on your own for 8 hours, thinking really, really hard about something for a full year.
And something that at the end of the day might end up in the bin.
That's also very true. It's, unless you happen to be on a multi-book contract.
Unless you're Lee Child's brother, then you're all right.
Well, quite. The chances are, unless you are fulfilling a multi-book contract, the vast likelihood is that your book will never go anywhere. It's unfortunate but true. Even if you're a reasonably well-established author, the chances are probably still against you actually getting a new contract for a new book, unless you've been very successful. It's really hard, and I am very impressed with anybody who kind of sets out writing books who knows the reality of it.
Do you think that dislike of writing has fed into the format of some of your books? How you like to kind of try different forms, with the we'll come to talk more about that later as well. But they are sort of standalone and they'll bend the form.
Yeah, probably. So my most successful book, The Turned Glass, is this kind of very unusual tête-bêches format, which is 2 stories printed back to back and head to foot and intertwined. So you read one, you flip the book over and you read the other, and you can read them in either order, but you only really understand whichever one you're reading once you've read the other one too. So it's very unusual, and like you say, it plays with form. And my most recent book is the sequel to The Turned Glass, The Waterfall, and it's a story within the story within the story within the story. And yes, I certainly find it easier to write 4 quarters of a book or 4 stories than one long story. And it's kind of increasingly the case. And I do enjoy just kind of playing with form like that. It does certainly kind of perk things up for me, makes it more interesting, more exciting, fresher. So yeah, the short answer is yes. That the kind of boredom that I find with writing a single 110,000 word book has pushed me to try to experiment a bit with format. And with formats that I find easier to write.
Although, having said that, it may not have helped when you say it's really hard sat thinking for hours and hours on end to do these complicated books that kind of have multi-stories that weave into each other, and they must be pretty complex to put together.
That's also true. That's absolutely true. That it does add a distinct layer of complication, and that distinct layer of complication adds 30% to the brain fatigue that I experience.
But I suppose if you love doing that actually makes it easier, weirdly, doesn't it?
I'm sure it does. But I'm quite serious about how tiring it is, mentally tiring, to spend hour after hour thinking really hard about something.
I mean, there will be multiple people who maybe work down the pit and what have you, who will be listening to this thinking, God, yeah, I've never really thought about that. Poor Gareth. That is tough.
Yeah. It's true that I do get coal miners come up to me a lot and express sympathy.
Yeah.
I get it, Gareth. We've talked about this on the podcast before, but I get writing narcolepsy, where I literally find it really hard to stay awake.
Yeah.
If there's something is a really sort of gnarly problem that I'm trying to solve, quite often just find my head on the keyboard.
I can believe it.
So I do get it. I'm really intrigued. At what point in the process of writing The Turned Glass did you decide that the book had to be a tête-bêche? Was that the starting point?
It was, yes.
Oh, right, okay.
Yeah, I wrote a tête-bêche book. I didn't start writing a murder mystery and turn it into a tête-bêche book. I was really interested by the format, by the idea. I'd never seen it before. I'd never heard of anyone doing it before, and then I started, Googling it basically. I didn't know the name, didn't know the word tête-bêches. I was just thinking, I wonder if you can write a book which you flip over and start reading from both sides at once, and it meets in the middle, and it kind of only makes sense when you get to each one. Only makes sense when you get to the middle, when you read one, and you keep turning it over. And I started, some kind of researching. I found that it's an old format. People used to do it hundreds of years ago for some commercial reasons. It was cheaper to print two books that way. That two books in one than print two separate books, because you had, for the simple reason that you had just one leather cover, and one printing process. That's what they used to do in the 16th, 17th century in order to save on printing cost and effort.
And what kind of books would they be?
Generally religious books. So you'd have a Bible on one side and the Psalms on the other.
You have the Jesus bit on one bit and then the devil bit on the other bit.
That'd be amazing, wouldn't it?
Take your pick.
See what mood you're in, and then go.
Yeah, you've obviously been reading very different versions to the one I've read, but I don't see why not. The diabolical Bible, you could call it, or something like that. Do you know what? I think that's a great name for a book. My next book is going to be called The Diabolical Bible.
There you go. You can have that one.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So that's what they used to be. In most books, 500 years ago, probably majority of books, religious books, I imagine. So I came up with the idea of doing that. I had no idea what it would be, except that I'd started writing kind of historical mysteries, what they call intelligent thrillers. So I started thinking, well, what would make sense within this format? You can't just have the format and then any old book, because you have to justify writing it in this kind of crazy format. And so I started writing it about tête-bêche books and two stories which were the kind of mirror image of each other, literal inversions of each other, which were also metaphorical inversions of each other. And so that kind of made sense. And the more I got into it, more I kind of enjoyed writing it. And when I first mentioned the idea to my agent, he thought, "That's a great idea. Let's do it." And I wrote it, and we had the manuscript in standard, in Word format, and we had to try to. I wrote a sort of cover letter basically for editors to try to explain what it would be, and basically all except my current editor wrote back saying, "I've got no idea how this will work. This is mad. Who are you? How do you get into my office?" That kind of thing. But luckily my current editor, Catherine, who I knew slightly beforehand, which probably helped, said, "Okay, let's roll the dice, see what happens." And it became a hit, and the 14 foreign editions and Sunday Times bestseller and that kind of thing, all because it just kind of caught people's imagination as something a bit different. And I do kind of think from time to time about all the editors who rejected it, and there were a lot who rejected it, who did so because they were just slightly afraid of doing something a bit new, which I find quite surprising actually amongst book editors.
Yeah, slightly depressing as well, that, isn't it?
Yeah, maybe. I remember one, in fact, two or three probably, who emailed back saying, I don't even know how I would print it. And I thought, I just kind of think to myself, why? It's just printed like any other book. I mean, if you can print an atlas, you can print a book where some of the words are upside down, basically. It's all it is.
But not even find out, not to just go, oh, I probably don't know how to do that.
Yeah.
Never mind.
Yeah. But it is really complicated because you have to turn the whole printing press upside down in order to print them. And that's quite costly.
And all the printers too.
That's probably what it was.
All the people working there. They have to hang like bats.
have to hang from the ceiling.
Apparently, it's actually cheaper to print the other half in Australia and then transport it back.
Amazing, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, there was a bit of a thing in the sort of mid 20th century. The ace doubles, that was a thing, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And presumably that was all because it made it cheaper.
Yes, the ace doubles. They're the only relatively major tête-bêche book of the last 100 odd years that they're American pulp fiction. They present westerns or sci-fi or that kind of thing.
They've all got these brilliantly kind of schlocky cover artwork. They're really beautiful things.
I bought one out of curiosity. I haven't actually read, but just as a kind of souvenir of the last attempt at tête-bêche novels.
Yeah, I have to say I should say the design is really lovely as well. It's got this sort of hourglass design on the front. That obviously then has to be turned upside down. to read the other connected story. It's a very nice thing. I've started reading it. I am fully embroiled.
Which side are you reading first?
The older story.
That's what most people read.
Presumably there is no particular starting place.
No, most people read 2 stories. One set in 1881, one set in 1939. So most people read them chronologically. You can read it in either direction, and I'd say 60-70% of people say they read the older story first, the British set one. 20% of people say they read the American story first, which is set in 1939, and about 10-15% actually, and I call this dungeon master level, actually read both at the same time, interweaving.
Oh, nice.
Reading one then the other, which I think is a really interesting way of doing it.
John, you amateur reader. That's what you should be doing.
Yeah,
you should do one word from each.
Yeah.
Alternatively, that's the top level.
I'm going to read it hanging upside down.
Yes. You could actually read them backwards. Start at the middle. Read them both back. Read one backwards, one forwards. It's extraordinary.
Work your way outwards.
That would give. But yeah, I actually find it really interesting that the people who commit to reading one chapter then the other side, and they must have a really interesting experience. I mean, and you know what? I think it's probably the best way of reading it.
Right.
And the sequel to that, The Waterfall. What's the crazy format for that one then? Because there's 4 levels.
The Waterfall is a mise en abîme novel, which, as you both speak medieval French, means placed in the abyss.
I was just going to say that. Yeah.
And actually means a story within a story, or in this case, a story within a story within a story within a story.
Just because the first one, writing that was too easy, so you just had to kind of notch things up a bit.
Yeah, I mean, weirdly, actually, I think that it was slightly easier to do The Waterfall because the stories, although they absolutely interconnect, they're not inversions of each other. So with the Turnglass, I was constantly having to think, what is the opposite of this plot line, or who is the opposite of this character, and kind of meld the other story in that way. But with The Waterfall, so it's 4 stories, each one within the next one, and in 4 different genres. So the first one is historical, quite highbrow historical murder mystery, about with Shakespeare investigating the real life murder of Christopher Marlowe, who was his friend. And they're friends and collaborators. And lots of people who read books are vaguely aware that Christopher Marlowe was murdered. Not aware of the incredible circumstances of his murder, that he was essentially assassinated in a hotel by the servants of his protector, his patron at the time. And he had just come home from Amsterdam, where he was being pursued as a coin forger. He was probably over there working as a spy for the English Secret Service, spying on Catholic plots against the English monarchy. If he had survived one more day, he was about to be arrested on the express orders of Queen Elizabeth for atheism, for having written a pamphlet in which he portrayed Jesus Christ as having had a homosexual relationship with John the Baptist. So if he had survived one more day, he probably would have been executed. We do know that he and Shakespeare were friends. They did collaborate on The Two Noble Kinsmen. And so it's quite plausible, I think, that Shakespeare really would have investigated the murder of his friend at the time. So that's the first story. So it's quite sort of relatively highbrow medieval murder mystery. And then next story up is in the English Gothic tradition, set in a former priory, which has now been turned to a sort of sleep clinic for people with sleep disorders. And it's all very spooky and very strange, and it's probably the darkest of all the stories. Next one up is a classic English 1930s golden age Agatha Christie-esque one, but with a lot more humor in it. So that's a really fun one. That's the one actually that whenever people reviewed it, they said that's their favorite story because it's lots of fun. It's quite a giggle. This kind of slightly eccentric English investigator, and then finally it's 1942 in Los Angeles, and it's the American Hard Boiled story, which is a sequel to the American story within the Turnglass. And I really enjoy writing different genres. I find that's kind of one thing which I actually like most about writing, trying different things. So the fact that I could write in 4 different genres within the same book was a big +3, big draw for me.
My name is Gerald, I'm admiring the stars, noodling a song on my trusty guitar. But then I take over and change the whole dynamic. I'm a man singing about a man who's singing about the planets. But then you realize this song is about me. Singing about a man with a guitar on his knee. Yes, we're singing a song within a song within another song. When a song is among a throng of other songs, can it belong to the song you sing along to?
Just wait a moment, for I need to expose that I'm the real singer of this song. Don't you know?
Your lies are vicious. Everyone's suspicious now, 'cause so far every singer has been entirely fictitious. We're singing a song within another song. How much longer can this song go on? Hopefully it won't be too prolonged.
You're totally spot on, 'cause above all I'm beyond. When this song is done, it turns out it was just about me, John.
Actually, you're wrong. John is just a con, 'cause in fact it was me, Gerald, singing all along. Tricked you.
Writing in different genres, if you want to be a successful novelist, can cause issues, can't it, with editors and publishers that they like to pigeonhole, and they like to go, oh, look, people have read that and they want something similar, and we can sell them something similar with the same author on.
Well, that's absolutely true. You know, if you are starting off as a writer, you should try to pigeonhole yourself, choose your genre and stick to it. Funny enough, I mean, my genre, rather unusually, is multi-genre.
You found a loophole.
I have found a loophole in the law. I don't know how long it's going to be open for. But I'm exploiting it as much as I can right now.
Yeah.
So I think that my agent likes to promote me as being quite literary about books. I write about books in many ways. The books that I write, there's always or usually some kind of book at the center of it, some kind of literary mystery to it. And that obviously goes down quite well to people who like books.
Yeah.
They like books about books. And so I can just about, carve out this unusual niche. Writing different genres, so long as it's always about books at the heart of it.
What you write implies, I think, a lot about what you read, maybe? Do you read a lot of like older stuff, classics?
Yeah, I do. I don't read very many contemporary set books, it's true. And certainly when I'm writing a book, I will read within that genre. So if I'm writing a story which is set in 1880s England, I'll read, Dickens or Sherlock Holmes stories or the like. And then if I'm writing in the next genre up, if I'm writing a 1940s hard-boiled American one, then I will read, Raymond Chandler, etc. Just kind of get so I can get, the rhythm of the dialogue and the rhythm of the action, as well as kind of more basic stuff. Just trying to remind myself of what the streets looked like back then to people to people who lived through those eras, rather than trying to do the research from kind of secondhand kind of way.
Well, you clearly have a good ear. Would it be an ear? Would it be eyes? I don't know. Anyway, you've got a good eye for that kind of thing. I read your Sherlock Holmes book, Holmes and Moriarty, which I thought was excellent.
Thank you.
But that had a very authentic feel to it. It had all the right kind of 19th century lexicon. And
I really enjoyed writing Holmes and Moriarty. For those who haven't read it, it's about Holmes, Moriarty, and Dr. Watson and Sebastian Moran. And in the way that Watson chronicles Sherlock Holmes's adventures, Sebastian Moran chronicles Professor Moriarty's. And so the book is written in two different voices between Watson and Moran. And I really enjoyed writing Moran because I could basically make up his voice. And he must have a really interesting voice because he went to Eton and Oxford, but also he's also a big game hunter, and he hangs out with criminals. He actually lives in the criminal underworld. So he has this really interesting, I think, voice, which is rather like some old Etonian trying to be a bit of a geezer. And I really enjoyed writing that. I really liked writing his voice.
I think you can tell when you're reading it as well. But yeah, I was going to ask you, what's it like to write like an official follow-on?
Yeah, is it daunting to take on that kind of
because it's not
responsibility?
Not just a famous series. It's like one of the most famous characters of all time.
Well, Holmes is the most adapted character in literary history, according to the Guinness Book of Records. Much more than more than Harry Potter, more than. Here's an interesting question for you. What do we think is the what's the most bought novel ever written in history of the world?
I mean, I want to say something Sherlock Holmes now, but yeah.
The answer it's actually Don Quixote.
Oh wow! Yeah.
Which is, I think, because every Spanish-speaking school child throughout the world reads it. Whether you're in Spain or South America, they all read it. But anyway, back to Holmes, who has this incredible international spread and appeal. Every society around the world knows and loves Sherlock Holmes. I remember I was in Japan a couple of years ago, and I went to meet my Japanese publishers. They published Sherlock Holmes stories, and at the time, the most popular kids' cartoon was called Miss Holmes, just about his niece or something. It was this little bespectacled 5-year-old who solves crimes. And yeah, they're operas, computer games, board games, poems, pencil cases, tours. People around the world are still obsessed with this literary character 150 years on. And 100 years ago, even slightly more than that, his creator, Conan Doyle, killed him off, and then public acclaim demanded that he resurrect him. Although I've always suspect that he was intended to do that, frankly, which is why that when Holmes was killed off, he was killed off in a way that you never see the body, you never really know if he's alive or dead. So I'm pretty sure Conan Doyle actually had that at the back of his mind. I'm going to bring him back one day when
I run out of money. Yeah.
But in terms of resurrecting that character myself, it was kind of tricky that I didn't want to piss off too many, Holmes aficionados around the world. I wanted to get it right. I wanted to get it so it's a good book. So it's not going to annoy anyone. It's going to be enjoyable. I didn't want to make it too wacky, but I did want to put my own stamp on things. And for that reason, that's why I decided to write a book, about Holmes and Moriarty, 50-50 between the two, and half the book in Rand's voice. So I could have written a very straightforward 100,000-word Sherlock Holmes mystery in Dr. Watson's voice, where Holmes, solves some mystery in the country house, and it would have been fine, I'm sure, and nobody would have objected. I'd have sold okay, but I wouldn't have felt that I was doing anything quite some interesting with it.
Wouldn't have been very Gareth Rubin, to be fair.
Well, quite.
Yeah.
What
did the hardcore? What was the consensus with the diehards?
Okay, yeah. Nobody seemed to. I didn't get death threats.
That's good.
That's got to be a good thing.
Which is what I normally expect. Yeah, nobody seemed to object to it.
How did it initially come about? Was it something you had in mind, or were you approached?
Well, my literary agent happens to be the agent for the Conan Doyle estate, literary estate.
Okay.
And I was just talking to John one day about future projects, and the idea came up because he knew that literary estate were looking for someone to write a new, official authorized Holmes.
Presumably this is partly on the back of the success of The Turnglass and the way that you write. Yeah.
Yes, yeah. If that hadn't been successful, then I don't think I would have been really in the running. But yeah, it all turned out well.
Just out of interest, when you were writing the Holmes story, were you kind of sending drafts to the literary estate, the Conan Doyle? How involved were they, or did they just totally hands off?
They were quite hands off. I get asked this a lot. The essentially what happens is I wrote the book and then sent it to them, and they said, "Yeah, fine."
Nice.
That's a rather anticlimactic answer, isn't it?
I think that they sent me a couple of comments about credits. I can't actually remember what they were, but yeah, it's nothing serious. At no point do they say, "No, you can't do that. You have to do this." I think if I'd written it where Sherlock Holmes turned into a shark, then they might have said, "Do you know what, Gareth? Can you have another go?"
When you're planning, I assume you do plan. If you're writing like a murder mystery type novel, I guess I have attempted to write a murder mystery novel as well. How do you have a way of putting it all together, of planning it out, or are you a bit more kind of seat of the pants? What's your sort of process?
I'm glad you asked me that, John. No, I don't plan it out. I have a first page. What I start with generally is an image. From the first image of the book in my mind, I can see somebody somewhere doing something. And I have a genre. I have a kind of theme for the book. And I kind of possibly have an endpoint, which may or may not end up being the endpoint, just so I know that there can be an endpoint.
Right. Okay.
And then I sit down and start writing, and I see what happens.
So when you say endpoint, you might not necessarily know who did it, or you don't know the specifics. You just know that that's a finishing.
Yeah, I might have an idea of who did it, but that might change. And I might have an idea of why it happened. But again, that might change.
So you plot as you write.
Yeah. Because the thing is that I've tried, sort of plotting out page by page, chapter by chapter, what happens. And I find that 5,000 words in, I completely changed my mind anyway. So I've just kind of wasted 2 weeks or a month.
Yeah.
Just a massive waste of time.
Yeah.
And how much editing ends up coming out of flying by the seat of your pants? Is it a lot? Or
it is a lot. It's so the way I write is basically a very inefficient way of writing, but it's the only way that works for me. So I kind of reckon that if I'm writing a 100,000 word novel, I'll probably write about 200,000 words, and I'll have deleted half of them and rewritten half of them by the end.
Yeah, we talked to Stuart Turton on this podcast. And he is write an entire draft and then delete it and then start again.
Right.
Which is it's quite a harrowing idea, I think, for me. But
yeah, it's not quite what I do, because I don't kind of get to the end and then start again. Yeah. I just kind of keep
you've already tweaked it by then.
D.H. Lawrence used to do that. Used to write a book and then start again from the blank page and rewrite it, which is why, interestingly, there are kind of different versions of Lady Chatterley's Lover out there. You can read, if you really want to, you can buy a copy of John Thomas and Lady Jane, which is the original version of Lady Chatterley's Lover, which presumably wasn't very good, but you can buy it, as a standalone, as its own novel.
One of the recent books you wrote that caught my eye was a Choose Your Own Adventure, the Christmas murder one. Now you must have had a full cork board and post-it notes. Planning for that.
No, much better than that. I had Ed. Ed's my friend. Ed has a mind like some sort of quantum supercomputer. So I would just kind of start churning out the pages, and Ed would be mentally keeping track of where they were going. And every so often, he'd email me and say, "Can't do that, Gareth. You've already got suspect X in the bakery."
I'd love an Ed.
Yeah, yeah, that sounds amazing.
So the next book that you've effectively sort of partly written, because you wrote it a while ago, what's going to happen with that? What's the sort of trajectory? Are you in the process of still writing it? Are you editing it? Are you?
Actually, I've just finished the first draft, and my editor's reading it, and she'll get back to me soon with her edits.
And this one's just a book with pages in order and words on the page? Or...
Rather unusually, this one is one story within a story. So it's,
back to basics.
Back to relative basics. I can't, I think my readers would be very disappointed if I wrote 100,000 words from beginning to end in the normal sort of fashion. What's wrong with you, Gareth? So it's a story within a story. But I think it works quite well. So it's set, the first storyline is set in 1806, about somebody who, a little bit kind of Dickens-esque. He's essentially an orphan, grows up not knowing who his parents are. He's been discovered in very strange circumstances as a baby. His mother has been sort of kidnapped, kind of in front of him, in front of everybody else. He's been brought up by a local schoolmaster, and slowly he starts reading the book is called Penny Blood. And Penny Blood is like Penny Dreadful. It's just an alternative word for Penny Dreadful. And he starts reading this Penny Dreadful, which is sort of published periodically, and realizes that it's his father's life story. And kind of bit by bit, he's getting closer and closer to his own origins. And he has to kind of track down the other editions of the pamphlet, that kind of thing, and search his father. So it's two storylines which just dovetail together towards the end.
Sounds intriguing. Very good. I guess if it's only sort of being gone into edit, then it's potentially like years off publication if it gets.
No, it's about 5 months of publication.
Oh, you're kidding?
Yeah. September.
It's almost like magic. I memean, that's such a rare thing, isn't it? Amazing.
It is. Well, it's two things. Firstly, it's because it's the second book of a 2-book contract, so it is contracted.
That speeds things up, does it?
Yeah. And the publication is this year. If my editor decided it's rubbish and it needs complete rewriting, it'd be put back probably to the next year or something. But as far as we know, the publication until for autumn this year, which is when all my other books are being published.
Fantastic. Well, good luck with it.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, guys.
So for those people who maybe enjoy the Sherlock Holmes novels and have a keen eye for details and clues, will have noticed the answer to the question posted in our intro was in there, wasn't it?
It was indeed.
How old were you, John, before you knew that that wasn't actually about a donkey?
It's a good question. Yeah, I think probably quite early on, because I think it was
you
mentioned.
Would be. Yeah, you would be. Oh, I read it when I was 8. Yeah.
It was mentioned quite early on in one of our English lessons.
Of course it was.
Although I do remember thinking, how did an X get in there? How does that make any sense?
Obviously, yeah. I knew that from the 1986 Mexico World Cup. So I was already au fait with that. Anyway, thank you, Gareth. That was fascinating. Don't even know what to say about that. There's so many different bits. That was just what a brain. It's like a chess grandmaster in there somewhere.
Holding all that together. But he has got an Ed, so he's kind of cheating.
Everyone needs one of them, don't
they?
Yeah.
I reckon we could do that if we had an Ed.
But check out the show notes for links to Gareth's books. I mean, you got to give them a go, haven't you? Especially like the tête-bêches.
You really do. Honestly, he's a very talented man. So yeah, definitely check them out.
Absolutely. So what we got next, John?
Writing can be such a lonely business. You're tapping away night and day. Easy to think, what the hell is this all for? Nothing going my way. But remember, friend, there are people who care about those words you've carefully woven. So if you're brave enough to come and share, we'll hype you up like a freaking explosion. It's time for Hype Writer, the right type of acclaim we all need occasionally, cause you're a mighty fighter, the type who lights up the writing world with your beautiful words.
So Simon John Parkin has sent us in some words for Hype Writer, John, this week.
It's a bit of a belter, this, isn't it?
I mean, we love a theme, don't we? We love a theme.
We do love a theme.
And he's got a nice theme. I like it.
Yeah, he's got a very nice theme. I was going to say, when we put out that call that we wanted up to 1,000 words from our listeners, this piece was, I think it was the first to arrive in our inbox, actually. And when you hear it, you'll realise why. In fact, we've got Simon here to tell us what's going on with this piece.
Hello, this is Simon John Parkin, and for the last year or so, I've been writing stories of exactly 999 words, and I've just collected 9 of them and published a little book called 999. So these stories started with a submission that asked for under 1,000 words, and me, being pedantic, I wrote one under 1,000. 999. I didn't get accepted for that publication, but they gave me really good feedback, and that encouraged me to submit to a competition called the Pages Printed. I was lucky enough to get first prize. I also discovered that stories of 999 words are a really good length, more condensed than a short story, but weightier than flash. And hitting that 999 word mark really makes you consider every word and every sentence. So I carried on writing them. The first story in the collection is also called 999, and it's about a man who makes a 999 call, but there is no emergency. There's a story about a woman who sparks up a relationship with a compost bin. There's a story about a man who idolises the King's Guard in London. There's a failed rapture, and there's one story about a fictional Katy Perry.
So I think you can see why it kind of piqued the interest of the writer.
Having heard that, though, John, I'm a little bit disappointed that he sent us this story in and not the one about a woman falling in love with a compost bin or whatever it was. That sounds... Maybe that's just maybe it's just doing a good tease, so you have to buy the book for that one.
Yeah, that's what it is.
Yeah.
I've read a few more of his pieces. They're very good. The one that he mentions that's called 999 is quite nice. There's one written from the point of view of the sea, which is quite stunning. But yeah, we'll put a link to his book. Hopefully he'll shift a few of those. Yeah, support a fellow writer. Get yourself a copy.
Yeah.
You won't regret it. Actually, they haven't even heard it yet, have they? Should we do that first before they buy the book?
Indian Summer by Simon John Parkin. The sun was like an unexpected visitor to Brighton that September. People didn't know what to do with it. We chased it behind the remains of the West Pier, as if we would never see it again. We lured it through the sash windows like we could hoard it for the long winter months ahead. We guzzled it down desperately before it ran out. We tried not to be dazzled, but failed. The night was still warm when we walked back to hers after the ocean rooms. "Don't say a word," she warned me before answering her phone. It was her ex. He was calling to see if she'd had a good time, to see if she wanted to come round. "Not tonight," she told him. "It's late and I'm tired." I hung back on the pavement behind her, bit my lip, and smiled. She brought 2 teas to bed and handed me one before slipping under the duvet next to me. She was from Jersey, I learned. "You dare call me a cow," she said. "Actually, I've got landed ancestry, so you'd better call me a Jersey Royal." I told her my ancestors were butchers from Dudley, but they must be rolling in their graves, knowing they'd spawned an animal rights campaigner. She told me about her job, about the women she worked with at the community centre in Rottingdean. Her mums, she called them. She wanted children herself. She just came right out and said it. "But we've only just met," I joked. She was serious. "If you hear a noise in the night, it's just my ovaries clacking together," she said as she took the mug from my hand, climbed onto my lap, and flicked her contact lenses across the room. I floated home over Hanover later that morning. Out at sea, a bank of mist lay on the horizon, held back by the rising sun and the heat of the city. The next day, she politely but swiftly ended my phone call. She texted back immediately to say she hadn't expected to hear from me, that she and her ex were trying to give it another go, but maybe we could just go for a drink sometime. Her mouth tasted of garlic when we kissed at the bar later that week. It was a tactic, she admitted, to try and put me off. I wasn't allowed to go back with her that night because her flatmate was in and she was friends with her ex, so we walked along the beach instead. I laid my jacket on the pebbles and we sat in the shade of the seawall. Beyond the whirling lights of the Palace Pier, the clouds flashed from some foreign lightning. She told me about her obsession with Mary Poppins, how that was the type of mum she wanted to be, strict but fun. She sometimes dreamed of dancing across the rooftops of Brighton. I asked her when she was going to disappear with the wind out over the sea. She draped a foot over mine and pulled my hand up between her legs. We walked along the old Steine afterwards, her arm hooked in mine, head leaning on my shoulder, elm leaves blowing around our ankles. We peeled apart just before reaching her flat. That weekend, I was walking down the North Lanes when I saw her, framed by the window of a cafe, pouring a pot of tea into 2 cups, her other hand resting on his knee. I stumbled the rest of the way to the seafront. I stood and watched the sun leap between the piers as if in a victory lap. The bank of clouds on the horizon piled higher by the day. "You know the situation," she mumbled into her wine glass the next time we met. "I haven't lied to you. I'm not sleeping with him, I promise, but I've said I would give it another chance. I'm sorry, though. I didn't want you to see that. Look, if you decide you can't handle it, I'll understand." "I can," I lied. "I can. It's just hard, that's all." "It's hard for me too," she said. "But please, we've only just met, and I've made him a promise. I need to work this out by myself. Don't pressure me, okay? If I thought you were happy with him, I wouldn't." I didn't hear from her for a few days. Finally, the sun blew away. The clouds toppled and washed to shore. People pulled their sash windows down and deserted the seafront. They abandoned their T-shirts and shorts once more and hunkered down against the rain. The sun was just a visitor, and sometimes we were glad when visitors left, so we could tidy up and get back to our normal, dull lives. She called me. I felt weary. The sun seemed to have taken my energy with it. "I can hear you sighing down the phone," she said. "Stop it." That was why she was phoning, to tell me she was going to end it with him. She knew it wasn't going to work. She had always known, really. "Are you sure?" I asked, but wished I hadn't. "I feel like I've got double maths in the morning," she said. "Double maths, and I haven't done my homework." We met by the Palace Pier a few days later. She looked different, wrapped up in her green parka. Her skin seemed paler, like sea-worn pebbles. We walked in silence along parallel lines, leaning into the wind. The bars and galleries along the seafront were bathed in a uniform light that seemed to suck all colour from them. I searched through the second-hand bookstores, while she looked out past the skeleton of the West Pier, her arms folded against the wind. "Look what I found," I said, and held up a battered copy of Mary Poppins. She nodded, smiled briefly, then turned back to the sea.
So there you go.
Brilliant. Well, there was 999 words there. Could have done with that extra word, I thought. It really let it down, didn't it?
Really missed.
Just didn't work with 999. It needed 1,000.
It did,
So that's a bit of a
yeah.
disaster.
He's really let himself down.
He has, hasn't he? But apart from that massive oversight, what did you think, John? What do you think?
I thought that was mwah. I'm doing a little chef's kiss there
yeah.
because I thought that was lovely. I thought it was very sensitively written. There's lots of psychological information in there about the characters, isn't there, without kind of expressly telling us about the characters.
Yeah. And there's just those nice little layers through it, isn't there? So you've sort of got the weather echoing the mood in that kind of pathetic fallacy as you go through.
Yeah. I was going to say it's very sort of uncliched, isn't it? Because he's obviously talking about the sun, but the sun isn't what the sun often is in those things. You know, it's normally a kind of symbol of joy and light, isn't it? But he's turned it into this thing that's kind of blinded him to the reality of the situation.
Yeah, I'd like that's a good, yes. What a good insight, John. Yes.
Thanks very much. I read this a couple of times because I really enjoyed it. I went straight back to the beginning and read it again.
Yeah.
Because it was so nice. I think a lot of short pieces like that often deserve another reading immediately, don't they?
I think so as well. Ones like this that have these little echoes going through it as well. It's nice to go back through it and go, yeah.
Great opening as well, I thought. He's sort of anthropomorphizing the sun, isn't he? Like it's an animal, like it's being hunted. Like they're luring it through the windows.
Yeah.
And we get a bit like that in this country, don't we? Like we get very greedy for the sun.
The first day of sun in the year, it's 12 degrees out, but people are having ice creams with the tops off.
Strip off,
Yeah.
light up the barbecue, and it does. I really like that. I thought that was great.
And obviously just that melancholic ending as well, really. It's quite nice in a way that you just kind of left going, oh, like there's not some glorious happy ending or some and they lived happily ever after. It just kind of fizzles.
Yeah, it does fizzle. But what's nice about it as well is that you feel like he might have, like, reality's come back in, but actually that's not a bad thing. Do you know what I mean?
As maybe he's sort of learnt something about himself.
Yeah, he's seen what that was all about.
And
really.
maybe I shouldn't do this to myself actually in the future.
So it's sort of sad, but at the same time there's a kind of growth or something that happens.
Yeah.
Really great.
You can read more of his stories in his collection that he put together, 999. It's available to buy via his Instagram, which is sparkin.lit. So sparkin.lit.
And he's done a lovely job of the cover as well, I thought. Talented fella.
Well, as it turns out, John, he is a graphic designer by trade.
Well, that helps.
And
that definitely helps.
Think as soon as you see the cover, you go, oh, yeah. Yeah. It would get that blown up to A3. That would make a cracking poster, wouldn't it? It's
yeah, you're right.
It really is a lovely bit of work. Lovely bit of work.
Simon quickly adds some merch to his website.
It looked nice on the T-shirt, that, wouldn't it?
Well, hopefully, people, that has inspired you, our listeners, to maybe show off a bit of your writing. What kind of stuff, Tommy, could they send us?
Well, we have quite a narrow brief on what we want to accept. So it's literally just the start of novels, poems, middle of a novel, short fiction, flash fiction, under 1,000 words, obviously. That's about it, actually, isn't it? It just needs to be under 1,000 words.
We've actually, do you know what? We've never had a performance piece before. We've never had like the start of a play.
Could be, couldn't it? That's an interesting one, yeah.
That as well. An essay. We'd take an essay. Basically anything that's been written.
Anything that you've written that you're really proud of that needs sharing.
That's what we want.
Whether it's something like this that you're hoping will get people to maybe invest and buy your book, or it could be just something that you wrote 15 years ago that you really loved and it just never got the attention that it deserved, just to share it out there with the wide world.
Or maybe it did. Maybe it won loads of competitions, but everyone's forgotten about it now.
Maybe you just want to show off. Well, that's fine as well. Fine. That's all good. That's all good.
Just send it over to failingwriterspodcast@gmail.com. You never know. It could be like the first step to something big, couldn't it?
Could be.
Who knows? Who knows who's listening?
So thank you for listening to this episode of the Failing Writers Podcast.
Yep.
In summary, buy us a coffee, have a look at our merch, books that are halfway forward and halfway backwards and mixed up and made out of 4 books. are good, and
Simon's good at writing.
and he's got a nice cover on his book, and we will speak to you next time. I think that's it. People could have just fast-forwarded to that and not actually sat through the whole thing, couldn't they? That was a
got a quick
really
wrap
good
up.
summation. People that have listened are going, God, he really has captured that. People talk about how hard it is to write a blurb for your book, but I've just done that for the podcast in seconds.
Nailed it.
Easy.
Well done, Tom. Well done. And very, very, very finally, don't forget, if you like what we do, follow us so that you never miss an episode. Review us, maybe.
Share it
Maybe
around a
post
bit.
Something.
Tell someone
Yeah.
else, you've got to listen to this one.
Yeah, it all really helps. And we've still got a mountain of very lovely, not right now, I'm writing T-shirts to give away to people who've made us happy. So sometimes, just being nice has its own rewards. And I'll leave you with that thought. Okay, bye for now, and we'll see you next week.
Take care. Happy writing.
Bye.
Hello?
Where's everybody gone?